Check Podcasts.
Hi, I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Chamber Chats, coming to you as always from here in the podcasting studios at the Czech Media Group, one of our chamber champions. I would like, as always, to acknowledge that I live and work in the lands of the Lekwungen-speaking nations, known to all of us as Songhees and Kosapsum. And all of this is made possible by the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union, who are changing what banking can do for people, for community, and for the planet. One of the topics of conversation that comes up quite often when we're talking about politics in this region is the fact that we have 13 municipalities. We're not here to talk about amalgamation at all, but the fact that we have 13 municipalities, each of which has its own unique character, as far as I'm concerned, and one that is certainly most unique among them all is the District of Sooke. We're going to talk today with the Mayor of Sooke, and the Mayor of the District of Sooke is Maja Tait. Mayor, how are you?
Very well. Thank you very much for having me today.
So let's say you meet somebody for the first time and they've never been to Sooke. How do you describe Sooke to them? What do you tell them?
Well, you'll find us where the rainforest meets the sea. You'll be delighted by our rugged good looks, our strong community spirit, the friendly energy that's here. And then I think you'll be delighted by not only the art and the wonderful arts and crafts, but the amazing food experience that you'll find here, as well as many wonderful places to explore.
And exploring, you've lived in many parts of the world. What settled you to make Sooke your home?
We wanted to get a single family house. It was the quality and the price of real estate. I grew up in a small community, so I wanted to be back in a smaller community, closer to nature. My husband always lived in larger metro centers, so he wanted to give rural living a try for something different.
Okay, so 17 years since you were first elected to council, and you were a councillor, and then you became the mayor. What changes have you seen? What's been the profound growth and change and progress, if you will, in the last 17 years in Sooke?
We're definitely growing. One would say there's a few more traffic lights in this time. There's been some improvements to the highway. We have quite a remarkable trail system. So there's ways to easily get around Sooke by avoiding the major roadways. Wonderful technology's changed. I had a flip phone when I first got elected. I now carry an iPhone, small computer with me everywhere. Communications and what we're doing has changed. And also, once upon a time, our wastewater and parks were all contracted out. These are all now in-house and managed in-house by district staff. So more control, authority over what we're doing in those departments.
If somebody hasn't been to Sooke for a while, which we hope is not the case, but you mentioned the upgrades to the highway. It's a whole different drive now compared to what it was even 5 or 6 years ago, right?
It is. The reflectors, like the fog lines are well painted. There's good reflection along the way, more lighting overhead, more visible signage. Of course, you come into the new sort of 4-lane section, which is made safer, particularly for those coming into Sooke from East Sooke or the Gillespie turnoff. More overhead lighting over crosswalks. There's always rooms for improvements, but it's a much safer drive, particularly at night or when it's rainy and foggy.
Yeah. Okay, so I've always said that I have great respect for anyone who chooses to run for office because I would never have the patience to do that. I really don't think I could wade through that world. But you've made that choice, and for 17 years now you've been. Why did you want to run for office in the first place?
I think the first time being a relative newcomer to the community, I thought, well, this is kind of exciting. The community is setting a course for itself. It was newly incorporated just in 1999. So it was 2008 when I decided to run. There were 2 members of council that were not seeking re-election. So there was an opening. I didn't want to push anyone out. I just wanted to be a part of it. I enjoy learning about different things. How does land use work? What is zoning? How are decisions made? I'm not afraid of speaking in public. So I thought there was a way to do that. And also to learn not only about the history but how to advance priorities that are important to the community. And similarly, in 2014, our mayor at the time decided that he was not going to seek re-election. So there was an opportunity to step forward and I decided to do it. And I've enjoyed it. I really enjoy the work.
What's the best part of it? What's the best part of your job as mayor?
The best part is the people that you meet, finding solutions to problems, trying to be helpful, I like getting to know other local governments and meeting other elected mayors and councillors, advocacy to the province or the federal government. And I particularly enjoy working with children and with young people and just to find ways to make sure that their voices are heard at our decision making table.
Today is a day when you were actually doing some committee work with the CRD. So that's, people talk about the 13 municipalities, but there is that sort of amalgamated way of doing things within the CRD. Tell me about your role there.
So the Capital Regional District is meant to fill in the blanks and to provide those services that a local government cannot do on its own. So operating water, for example, the service of water, the Heartland landfill, recycling, and how do we work together again with the 13 municipalities to find cohesion around the region. Our rec center is operated through the Capital Regional District. That's known as Sea Park. They do a stupendous job there. It's a service we cannot take on as a local government ourselves, at least not at this point. Things like animal control would be another, and then the regional parks, of which many are located sort of within Sooke and west of us.
I don't know if a lot of people realize how much work is involved, like how many hours. Like you work a lot, like all of you do. It's amazing.
We do, but that's all part of it. You
Yeah.
find ways to, share or delegate or to make the work enjoyable. But I'm also grateful we have an awesome staff. They do all the heavy lifting and get answers to those difficult questions for us.
Well, when you're doing anything of any nature, of any size, it's good to have a plan. And Suk has a plan. We're going to talk about that next. Our guest on Chamber Chats today is Maja Tait, who is the mayor of the District of Sooke. So there's a strategic plan that launched in October of last year. All municipalities do that. What are the priorities within that plan for Sooke? Like you're sort of framing out the future. Tell me about that.
A lot of it has to do with community safety, planning to make sure that we have a safe and enjoyable community. I actually wrote down some bullets here: sustainable growth and what does environmental stewardship look like for Sooke in specific. Community economic development. We know that we want to grow our commercial tax base. How do we lessen the reliance on Highway 14 by providing well-paid, good jobs close to home? So what does that look like? Infrastructure investments and improvements. How do we address those gaps now and how do we save into the future? And it's always looking internally at our own organization and how do we improve customer service?
Yeah, Suk is a member of this chamber, the Greater Victoria Chamber, another way that you're collaborating with other municipalities across the region. And when you mention economic development, I have a bit of a background in that too. But you've hired an economic development officer, right, to do all that
Yes.
stuff. Tell me about her role.
Her role is to, because it's multifaceted and often it was an addition to someone else's job. And with the day-to-day operations, it's a lot for one person to handle when it comes to dealing with land use or maybe complaints or so forth within the community. So some things like communication or community economic development can fall on the wayside and it's missed opportunity. So having someone dedicated to this role to actually be able to look out for our potential and to find those opportunities is really important. And this is where we've had some success there, and also bolstering our local non-for-profits and other community organizations. There are also many small business owners that are also giving up their time. And so it's a lot. There's a lot of demands on everyone's time these days, particularly if you have young children or elderly folks that you're caring for. So it makes sense to have a dedicated resource to take care of this and to look at growing that share of the pie, the commercial share and the light industrial, and to find those opportunities that work for us.
Yeah, and you have a very effective chamber of commerce, in fact, in Suk that operates on that very same model to work with the local businesses. So you're looking to attract things and create jobs in Suk. What are you looking for? What do people need to know?
What do people know? Well, we're a great place to be. And so we look at the high season or the peak season takes care of itself. So how do we promote the shoulder or the off season? What opportunities exist here? We obviously are right on the ocean. So we know that this is a great place to surf, but maybe not in Sooke particularly, but west of us. So what other sorts of services can we offer? Mountain biking, year-round opportunities exist here in the CRD's C2C. So how do we build upon that? And that's where there's some small businesses located closely to Harborview. The film industry is often looking for places. How do we showcase or even get our amazing location on the mind of scouters that are looking for places, and we've had success there. Sometimes it's private places, so the community may or may not know that filming is happening, and other times it's right in the core of Sooke and everybody knows. So it's also being respectful of that work that's taking place and the benefits that it has, and also looking for ways to continually promote in a sustainable way, and to build and bolster the small businesses that are doing so much in our community here.
Yeah, it's got to be fun for the folks who live in Sooke to see on film or on television or something. Say, hey, that's us. That's Sooke. Look, that's us. We're on TV. We're on a movie.
Yes, a great example of that is the movie Elsewhere. And if you look closely, you'll see many local retailers and some special places that are located there. And also a segment of The Amazing Race Canada was also filmed here in Sooke. And I was fortunate to be a pit stop host. So that was pretty cool.
Right on. So we'll talk again about this ECDev thing, and there's retail that's there. Are there products or services or businesses in particular that you're trying to attract that you think you could do more with, or that could grow and flourish in Sooke?
I think it's looking at sometimes what families need. We have quite a lot of young athletes. Sporting equipment is always a big one. Furniture. How do we have a lot of wonderful property. How do you then furnish and find that Canadian made or those local opportunities here? You hear a lot about folks just needing shoes
Because otherwise,
and
you got to go to the city for that.
footwear and clothing and those day-to-day pieces. I mean, there's a lot that can be delivered here by many of the bigger retailers. And then often we're a very artistic community as showcased in our Sooke Fine Art show. So where do you find that art when the show is not on? And that's where you see the growth in small galleries, night markets, and that sort of thing. But there's extreme amount of talent here. I think the challenge is we do not have any vacant retail commercial space. So the challenge is always in getting the building out of the ground, and then finding the tenants for that.
Yeah, just putting that out there for business people that might be looking to expand or start something new. Then maybe Sooke is the place to do that. I want to loop back on some stuff you were talking about with the CRD. You, like many places in Canada, had the disruption of wildfires, especially last year. So we're recording this on July the 17th, 16th? 16th. Thank you. I don't keep track of days very well. 18th. 18th. Thank you. I have help with this stuff.
Excellent.
So as of today, things are fine. But what sort of preparation is happening now ahead of or anticipating another wildfire situation?
It's knowing that it could happen as it certainly did last year. In years past, we would simulate what a wildfire event would look like so that there's the ongoing training, even for myself as the elected mayor, needing to declare a state of emergency. What does that look like? And then how are resources deployed? And that's where we have a trained wildfire coordinator on board to help with all of that, as well as our career fire department. The mutual aid, working with other detachments, whether that's Otter Point, Shirley, Machosen, the Wanda Fuca, because we're all supporting one another depending on where the event actually occurs. Building relations with the RCMP, who would also help with an orderly evacuation, schools, which would become respite centers, the library would be another one. And then what does the communication look like? So that's why, thanks to mobile devices, we have the Alertable app that folks can subscribe to get notification on these type of events. And then meanwhile, with all of our district owned properties is fire smarting the property. So what sort of vegetation should we be planted? What sort of preventative measures can we take in as the municipality, but then what can residents do at their home to fire smart their property? And that's where, if you have the sprinklers, you can get an assessment done for free, where a trained expert will come out and give you some ideas on how to take care of your property and what steps you can do.
So that assessment is done through the district then?
Through the district, through our fire and rescue services.
Yeah. Okay. Now, speaking of fire, we're going to talk next about water, because a lot of us get water that comes from Sooke, and we'll talk about that next. Our guest on Chamber Chats today is Maja Tait. She is the mayor of the District of Sooke. So the Sooke Reservoir is a source of water for a great part of the CRD. But you yourself in Sooke have your own water management plan. Tell me about that.
Well, the water comes from the CRD and it's done through the Wanda Fuca distribution. So that includes the West communities, Sooke, Langford, the Wandafuka, Machosen. And all of the water does come from the Sooke Lake Reservoir. There's a different piping system that carries the water out this way. There are, though, residents that still are on wells that do not have metered water to their homes. But largely, this is a CRD service, aside from the Wandafuka element, where a member of council sits on that particular advisory board.
Um, we talked earlier about the changes to the highway, but the accessibility to and from Sooke is on that one highway. But there's still folks that live in Sooke and work elsewhere. You know, they're not working in Sooke yet, but they're getting around there. So tell me about the access to transit. You have a park and ride option. How does that work?
We have a park and ride located at Sooke River Road, so folks can park there. There's another one at the new 4-lane section where the 17-mile is, that also has EV charging stations, secure bike lock up, and so forth. Where I do have a seat on the Victoria Regional Transit Commission, and it's working together with transit. So our staff share a lot of detail about the status of development so that transit can work to coordinate to ensure that hopefully the service will align where we see growth. It's a challenge, though, because we're not the only users of this system, and there's demands throughout the entire region. Though ultimately, the more folks we can move safely by bus, is fewer cars on the highway. So it's ongoing, but I do feel that the hardworking staff at Transit hear us. They're looking to always find ways to improve the system so that residents aren't standing on the bus if they decide to use transit.
And when we talk about the growth of the municipality, as with all places across Canada, certainly on the island and in Greater Victoria, housing is at the root of that when you're talking about the economic development plans and business growth and business development. So, housing is that crucial factor. How does the permit process work in Sooke? And to be perfectly transparent, we've talked quite often about how difficult it can be to get permitting in place for construction, whether it's a house or a factory or whatever it might be. Some places are a little faster than others. Tell me about the process in Sooke.
We went through various times where we did hear that folks were stuck at the occupancy stage. They needed a final sign off to get occupancy. We heard that again, it's through ongoing service review. We have a very dynamic CAO. We addressed the problem, and now I hear you can get an inspection when you need one. Obviously, subdivision and zoning are where a lot of the heavy lifting come. And so when things align with the plans that we have, I would say the applications go through a lot smoother than if you're trying to get an amendment, say, to official community plan or zoning amendments. Of course, the province has come in with some measures under Bill 44 that just allows development to happen, which some residents are not happy about, because then this process does not allow for citizens to voice concerns about development that's occurring. I would say there's always room for improvement, but I have not received any direct complaints in quite some time. And I agree, I can say that there's always room for improvement, but I know that our staff are on it, and we seemingly are meeting expectations at this point.
In all fairness, I think we have heard from various sources that maybe the technology could be a little stronger, and that's not just with Sooke, but with all jurisdictions. A little more robust technology and maybe a few more people to help this work happen. Would that help?
It may also help if those also applying also use technology effectively. Sometimes it's difficult to decipher something that is handwritten. It's going to take time, and there's room for error on both sides. If the writing isn't clear, we have found ways where documents can be uploaded, and we have a very strong records management system. So that's been developed over the past several years now, where records can move quickly throughout our municipalities. It's not big, heavy files of paper being passed around the office. They're electronic files, but it also is a benefit if the actual user applying use that method as well.
Yeah. So the name Sooke is actually, of course, a derivation of Tsoke, the nation that's been there for millennia. It's been there forever and ever. And you have a pretty close functioning relationship with the nation. Tell me about that relationship.
It's really important to us here. We recognize that we are on the unceded lands of the Sooke Nation, and they have lands. IR1 and IR2 are in two different parts of our community. We're also a local government involved in the Tumuk Treaty process. And so for myself, when I started being involved, I'm like, I don't really understand fully what Tamuk Treaty is all about. So it required a lot of self-directed learning to understand, to make good decisions. And then I think it's recognizing that the Sooke are partners. And for many years, it seemed their voice was not heard or represented in district making decisions, and now finding ways that recognizes the land, areas of archaeological and cultural significance, and how do we engage early and often and ensure that Sooke is consulted regularly while we make significant decisions that they largely may have been left out for quite some time.
So let's have some fun with this question. You have been on council and been the mayor for 17 years, and we've talked about the things that have happened in that 17-year period. What's Sooke going to be like 17 years from now? What do you think is going to be happening? What's going to be different? What's going to be the same?
I think we'll have a more connected trail system. We are now starting work on a significant connection over what is known as Little River or Demaumiel Creek. This is a way for school children who live, for those of you in the Sun River area, to be able to connect to Journey Middle School. Also in Sun River, we've just opened what is known as Ravens Ridge Park. This is where we have an outdoor sport box. You can play box lacrosse, as well as a multi-use gaming area for play like 3-on-3 basketball, soccer, and the like. So it's a way for students at Journey Middle School to be able to use those outdoor amenities, and also to be able to access the Sooke River, which is also a very popular destination for young people, people of all ages, actually. So a quick and easy way to get through our community is on the trail system. And there are plans to continue expanding this. With the work we're doing and what we're hearing from the generations that are following is nature, proximity to nature, the wild places, the creatures that we share the lands with are also important. So how do we coexist together and be mindful of that going forward? We are now also showcasing more of Sooke's work through art, through mural installations, through outdoor physical art. So how can we properly do name placing? It's saying 17 years already, school children are learning Senchothan, that they will know these words. We will all know them and see them more visibly displayed. Will there be an alternative to the highway? I don't know. There's talk of a connection through to Shawnigan. Will that happen in partnering with Mosaic Properties? I'm not sure about that. I would like to see, though, with some of the grants we've applied for in-ground town center infrastructure, where we may actually see some stronger economic development, more density in the heart of Sooke, more commercial nodes within the town core itself. I'd like to believe that caring for the wild places will always be important. Some of these are preserved and protected parklands, either owned by the district, Sooke, or the Capital Regional District, so that'll continue. And I feel that with the future generation that's up and coming, we're in really good hands. These are smart, capable young people.
And so are you. We know how busy you are. We appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. Maja Tait is the mayor of the District of Sooke. I'm Bruce Williams, and we'll see you again for another Chamber Chats.